It is an amazing mission field, ready, waiting, ripe for the IFCA to move into. And so we are planning to network plus send missionaries into that 1040 window. The vision for world missions is great. It is large. It is ever expanding. With technology and the digital age, who knows how many more people can be reached with the gospel of Jesus Christ. And we know that when all the people groups have heard, Christ said that he would return. World Missions is working hard as the foreign global aspect of the IFCA's mission and vision to see that he comes back much more quickly, because we are seeing people saved day by day. Our vision of world missions, accelerate the gospel so it gets there in time to be good news, complements the IFCA's vision to accelerate the gospel wherever needed. As this captivates our pastors, credential holders, parishioners, and the energy that comes from both what God is doing in the States, expanding the IFCA through new church plants and healthy churches, a greater footprint around the world. The energy flowing because of the vision will increase in ever greater amounts. We will become more and more clear the direction the Lord is leading us. We will be able to make the best decisions for our movement in fulfilling the vision to accelerate the gospel. And there will be a greater unity than we could ever imagine. The vision of the IFCA, accelerate the gospel wherever it is needed. As we continue our overview of the IFCA, we now come to a subject that is absolutely critical, but often unappreciated and even just swept aside. The scriptures tell us through Jesus all things were made. And for most things in life, we understand why they were made. But there are those ones that at times cause us to shake our heads in wonderment. Well, such is the case with our subject in this segment. When Dr. Edward Hale was the chaplain for the United States Senate, he was once asked, "Reverend, do you pray for the senators at the beginning of each session?" To which Dr. Hale replied, "No. I look at the senators and pray for our country." True story. Government is part and parcel to our everyday lives. And although we may become glassy-eyed when talking about it, assuming it is a necessary but boring issue, government is as important to believers as any other biblical truth. You see, Romans chapter 13, verse 1 declares, "Everyone must submit himself to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God." You see, the basis of all authority in government is the Lord himself. It is he who creates them. It is he who establishes them. It is the Lord who empowers them and gives them their authority. This is what makes every form of government important enough for we believers to perk up our ears to take note of what the Lord would have us know about government and authority. Whether the authority is civil government, parents, teachers, or a denomination. Whoever and whatever makes no difference, for the Lord has established and empowered every authority in our lives. So in reality, government and those in authority are extensions of God's presence, His nature, His love, and His work. They are, according to Romans chapter 13, verse 6, God's servants. No wonder verse 2 of Romans chapter 13 contains a very serious warning. Paul wrote, "Consequently, he who rebels against the authority is rebelling against what God has instituted, and those who do so will bring judgment on themselves." Wow. To rebel against government and authorities in one's life is to actually rebel against God. This takes our views and perspective of government and authority to a whole higher level, especially for the believer. The reason that the Lord established government and authority is for our own best welfare. Verse 4 of Romans chapter 13 declares, "For he is God's servant to do you good." One of the secrets for a good quality of life with the least amount of trouble is to submit to the authorities and government the Lord has established. He placed those governments and authorities in our lives so that we can enjoy the best quality of life available in this age. Therefore, having established the basis of government and authorities with their reason and purpose in our lives, let us look at the government of the IFCA. There are the following levels of authority, beginning with the highest and going down to the most personal. First, there's General Counsel. Second, the Executive Board. Third, the districts. And fourth, the local assemblies. Let me take a few moments to describe each one of them and what their activities are and how they relate. The highest level of authority in the IFCA is the General Counsel. A General Counsel consists of all eligible voting members. The decisions of the General Counsel are final and shall not be overruled by any board or committee, with the exception of the disciplinary and appeals matter as discussed in Article 10, Sections 6 and 7 of the bylaws. And in that part of our Constitution and bylaws, it is the Executive Board's final decision as to disciplinary matters. Now, all the deliberations of General Counsel are conducted at its scheduled convention or special business meetings. And that's the highest level of authority. The next is the Executive Board. Now, the Executive Board constitutes the trusteeship of the General Counsel. In other words, it is empowered to fulfill the decisions, the will, the wishes of the General Counsel. This board, along with the General Overseer, is responsible for developing a vision with a corresponding plan to fulfill the vision of the IFCA to accelerate the gospel wherever needed, and the desires, will, decisions of the General Counsel. Additionally, it supervises and has general oversight of all ministries and departments that have been created to assist the IFCA and the General Council in fulfilling its vision. All ordination applications are considered by the Executive Board for approval. As the highest board of authority in the IFCA, it is the final authority for referral and appeals for all unresolved disputes that have occurred on any level within the movement. The Executive Board is comprised of the General Overseer, who also serves as the corporate president, the Missions Overseer, who also has one of the two official seals of the IFCA, all the district overseers, of which there are 6 districts, one of whom serves as the vice president of the IFC and the director of focus. And finally, there is the recording secretary, but that person does not have a vote in the decisions of the Executive Board. The third level of authority is the districts, and there are 6 districts: the Great Lakes District, the Niagara Mohawk District, the Eastern District, the Northwestern District, the New England District, and the Southern Districts. Each of these districts are directed by a board known as the District Presbyters. They are responsible for fulfilling the decisions, the will, and the desires of the General Council on the district level as they apply to their respective districts. Also, as needed, the district presbyters create, provide, and supervise ministries and departments that assist the local churches in their work. So they are a helper for the pastor and the leaders of the local churches in their district. It is their responsibility to consider all applications for minister of the gospel, licensed to preach, and Christian workers' credentials. If there is an unresolved dispute in the district in regards to churches or credential holders, those involved in the dispute may appeal to the district presbyters to help solve the issue. And just as the IFCA has the convention, so the districts have district council, during which time the eligible voters discuss issues and vote, which then the district presbyters will fulfill as possible. That is the third level of authority. The most personal level of authority is the local church. Each assembly is autonomous, meaning each assembly is free to decide its rules, its regulations, and its actions, etc., how they run their services, what services they will have, what ministries they will have, as the pastor, official board, and parishioners desire. There is an exception, however, that if anything they decide or do that violates the Constitution and bylaws of the IFCA, their affiliation with us will be brought into question. And the district will then help them resolve this issue. The final level of authority in the IFCA, and the most personal, is the local church. Each assembly is autonomous, which means that it is free to decide its rules, regulations, and actions as the pastor, the official board, and the parishioners desire and will. However, there is one exception. If any of their decisions or actions violate the Constitution and bylaws of the IFCA, then their affiliation with the movement will be reconsidered. The district will be employed to help them work through this issue to see if it is something that we can resolve. And so the local church is a very important part of the authority and governance of the IFCA. The pastor with the official board are responsible for fulfilling the will of the parishioners in conjunction with the leading of the Holy Spirit as to what the church will do, when it will do it, how it will do it, and the ministries that are contained within the church. Now, the type of government that each of our assemblies has is a congregational form of government, which means the congregation joins together at least once a year for a meeting in which they vote on the issues that are at hand, whether it's a budget, a strategic plan, buying property, selling property, building, etc. All those types of decisions are made at the business meeting of the local congregation. And it's there that the wishes and desires of the people are shared and voted upon. And those which pass, the board with the pastor and the leadership team will try to bring to effect. The pastor with the official board also handle any disputes within the church. Now, if a dispute should arise that remains unresolved, then the pastor and or the church board may appeal to the district presbyters for assistance in resolving the issue. Now, if the issue is not resolved with the efforts and assistance of the district presbytery, then the pastor and the church board has another level of appeal, which is the executive board. And upon appealing there and presenting their cases, after considering everything and in prayer, the executive board's decision in the dispute will be final. And so there we have our 4 levels of authority and governance within the IFCA. The IFCA is a cooperative fellowship, as the churches and districts in the IFCA have affiliated voluntarily. This permits the churches and districts to govern themselves, except for if something should come into violation with the IFCA Constitution and bylaws, while enjoying an excellent opportunity to accomplish corporately what cannot be done individually, especially regarding world missions. So the chain of command is that the General Council of the IFCA in their deliberation will make decisions that are passed on to the executive board. They do all that is within their power to fulfill those desires and pass on to the district what needs to be done on the district level to fulfill the desires of the General Council. And as the districts work through what has been decided upon in General Council, as they do their work, it will come a time when it is passed on to the local assembly that then disseminates the information or does as it is able to fulfill the desires of the General Council. Likewise, information flows the other way as well. Churches, pastors, church delegates can go to the district councils and share what the Lord has on their heart and deliberate. As the districts vote on those and approve them, those are then taken to the executive board where they are discussed and then presented after approval on the executive board. Approval, they are passed on then to the floor of the General Council's deliberations. And so there is a good movement of information from bottom, the most personal, to the highest levels, and from the highest levels to the most personal levels. It is a system in which we believe God has created because there is the same type of flow of authority in heaven. You have God the Father, who has the plan for the ages. Jesus Christ the Son, who implements that or executes that plan. And you have the Holy Spirit who implements it. And so you have the same type of order in the heavenlies and in with regards to the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, as we do with the General Council, the Executive Board, the districts, and the local church. And because it does mirror what heaven is like in its authority, we believe that this is a system approved by God, and we've been using it ever since the foundations of our movement. So the 4 levels of authority provide structure and safeguards for those involved in ministry, meaning credential holders, churches, pastors, and those ministries affiliated with the IFCA. This is the government and authority the Lord has provided for us. And although it is not perfect, it is the one to which we are held responsible. And as we have seen in Romans chapter 13, verse 1, that all authority in government has been established by the Lord, and that our obedience to that authority shows our love and obedience towards God the Father. And I hope that this has helped you understand the necessity for governing and for authority, and also our responsibility in obeying and honoring and respecting that authority.